Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. Okay. Too many have not joined the class. Anyway, I think we can go ahead with our discussion. Even though maybe it will not take us a lot of time, since this is the last part of the association rule mining. Before the semester break, we were able to cover about the first part and the second part. So this is the third part where we are going to discuss the frequent pattern growth algorithm. So last time, our previous class, we discussed the introductory part of the association rule mining, which is simply finding relationship between the items, where we use an example of market basket analysis. And then we were introduced to a priori algorithm, since we are going to discuss these two algorithms, that is FP cross algorithm and the priori algorithm, which we also were able to have a lab exercise this week on this on using the priori algorithm. So today, inshallah, we are going to complete the third part. We are going to talk about the frequent pattern algorithm known as FP cross. So as we discussed last time, as we said, actually association involves identifying the frequent items, generating the frequent items, as in the case of a priori, and then finally generate the rules, because that rules is what will help to do the appropriate decision in decision-making process. So frequent pattern growth actually, we call it frequent items mining. As we see, we have done the frequent pattern item mining also in the priori algorithm. So now we are going to see it using the FP cross algorithm. This involves actually two main processes. One is finding the frequent patterns, and then two is generating the rules. So you remember, even in the a priori, we have to mine the frequent patterns and then generate the rules with different methods. So this algorithm also involves these two things. That is to construct the frequent pattern. That is, what are the frequent pattern in the data. So the algorithm will look at the data and say, okay, now what frequent pattern, what are the patterns that are occurring? For example, to say you are buying 2 or 3 items, item A, item B, item C. So what is the frequency of the occurrence of these purchases in all the transactions that we have today? Maybe out of 3 items, 2 items are bought at the same time by maybe high number of customers. This is what you call the frequency. So the one with the highest frequency, that means those items actually are being purchased by different customers or by many customers actually in that supermarket. So this is what the algorithm is trying to do, to find the frequent pattern. What are the patterns? And then generate the rule. That rule can be used for decision making to make the prediction. Okay, now using the rule, say, okay, based on the rule that have been generated by the algorithm, then we can use this model to say, oh, we are predicting that so number of customers can buy so item, or we can target so number of items. We can predict actually even the prices and a lot of things. So this is a decision. So frequent pattern growth actually was introduced to solve the problem or the bottlenecks of a priori algorithm. Because if you could remember last time, we discussed some of the challenges that are associated to a priori algorithm, especially the candidate generation. The priori algorithm actually it involves so many stages of candidate generation. If we can refer back to the lecture material, the lecture that we had last time. So that generation actually, it makes the algorithm to take longer time before it executes. So that actually time cost or time constraint is one of the things that make the scientists to introduce the FP growth. FP growth is trying to bypass or to limit the the generation, the amount of time being taken actually in using the a priori algorithm. So this a priori algorithm sometimes generates huge number of candidates, and those candidates every candidate has to be visited. So this is why we could remember we have the L1, all the data has to be scanned, then scan again L for the two item set, scan again for the 3 item sets, so continuously. So that scanning actually is what the pre-competent trying to avoid. Is the philosophy behind the pre-competent is that to use these local frequent items only. For example, you say ABC is a pre-competent. So it get all the transactions that have ABC in them at the same time, and then look at the database project. Where do we have the ABC as an item? Then D is a local frequent item, for example, in the database that contains ABC, D. So this is how it is. So to divide the data into two, this is why it has what is called two scanning. To only scan for the first time and then scan for the second time. We will see the process in the course of the lecture. So this, as we said earlier, it involves 2 steps. One is the construction of pre-competent tree, because the pre-competent tree is what translated into the frequent mining. So it will first generate the tree. That tree will help it actually to do what? To generate the roots. So we are going to see the steps one by one and see how FP cross is constructing a FP tree and then generate the root. So recursively it grow frequent patterns by pattern and database partition. To partition the database, then it construct the tree based on that, and then for each frequent item, to construct this conditional pattern base, and then it's conditional FP tree. This is just simply the process or the steps. Then it will repeat the process on each newly created conditional FP tree until the resulting FP tree is empty. So we'll see how the process will work step by step. So, and then, or we can say it contains only one path. Because starting, okay, maybe the tree is starting with the empty node, then first transaction, so number of items have been attached to this node, then continuously up to where there is no more or there is empty FP tree. So let's see how this FP tree is being constructed in this algorithm. So this is the first segment of the algorithm, as I said earlier. So the first scan of the database is the same as a priori. So you can remember that a priori it has to scan the data set for the first item set to go up to be able to generate the first list of the items. So the process is almost the same in constructing the FP tree. That is the first scanning, because FP gross involves 2 scans, the first one and the second scan, instead of multiple scan that is in the a priori. So the database is shown in the table. You can see the database here. We have number of transactions, like T100 to T900. We have 9 transactions, for example. So each table drives the set of frequent items, that is one item sets, and their support count frequencies. So in the database, you see that we have the minimum support, and finding the minimum support is almost the same as a priori. How many times item number 1 appear in the data set? How many times item number 2 appears? So we look at the transaction 100 with that ID 100, T100. So you see the list of items, I1, I2, and I5. So in this particular transaction, maybe transaction number 1, the first customer bought 3 items. So example, I1 can be found in what? T100, T400, you can see I1 again. Okay. Then you see in T500, we still have I1. And then in T700, we still have I1, you see item 1. And then in T800 and T900, all you can see this item 1 is appearing. So that means in many of these transactions, almost 7 transactions out of these 9 transactions, we have the item 1 that has been bought by, let's say, many customers. So meanwhile, for I2, for example, you can see, or for I1, it happens, it appears 6 times. And then for I2, which is in the T100, T200, T300, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it appears 7 times. This is why you can see it here. So this is how the first, what is called the header table, is generated. Using what? Using the count, the support count of each of the item. So from the data set, you can see, oh, what is the support of I1? The support of I1 is 6/9. The support of I2 is 7/9, for example. So now here, so this is the header list. So you can see I2, item 2, what is the support of item 2? Is 7. So it is usually actually in the order of, so it's always presented in L order. That is the highest one come first. So I2, if you look at these transactions, I2 appears 7 times, I1 appears 6 times, I3 also 6. Since I1 and I3 have 6 counts, so then you are going for the first item in the presentation of the header. Then I4 and I5 also appears 2 times. So the I4 appears have to precede I5 because it came before the I5. So all of these items, we look at this, we have item I1 to item I5. So all of them, their account has been extracted here. So this is how the tree has started. So this is the header of the tree now. So let's move and see the second step. Now we have the header. So the second step of constructing the AP tree, now the items in each transaction are proceeded in L order, that is sorted according to descending support count. And a branch is created for each transaction. So now they are sorted, you can see. So for transaction 1, how many times I2 appears? 7 times, I1, 6, I5 appears 2 times. So they are sorted in descending. So now you can see instead of I1, we see I1, I2 came first because it has the highest support count. So the items based on their frequency are arranged here in the sorted items table. You get the point? So this is what we are going to use to construct or generate the tree. So next, step 3. So you can see this is where the tree is created. You can see create the root of the tree, labeled with null node. So you can see the tree down here, the empty, we have the empty node here. Then scan database D a second time. So now the second scanning is coming off. So now our header is here as we have it before. So now we have the sorted items. So now scan of the first transaction. Let's say this transaction T100, where we have I1, I2, and I5 initially in the data set. And then it contains 3 items sorted here, I2, I1, I5 in L order. Leads to the construction of the first branch of the tree with the 3 nodes. What is the first node? I1, I2, 1. In this transaction, we have I2 as what? Appeared 1 time. So then we have I2. Then we have the support count here. This is why we have I2 semicolon 1. That is, or I2 colon 1. We have the count. So it started like that up to the point where we exhausted all the transactions here. So now we have that where I1 is linked as child of the root. What? I2 is linked as child of the root I1. So now I2 is the root of the I1 because I1 is going to be linked with I2. So now I2 is linked, I1 is linked to the I2 continuously, and the I5 is linked to I1. So now the tree has started. So next, what are we going to do? The second transaction, we look at the transaction here, where we have I2 and I4. So remember in transaction 1, we have I2 again. So now, transaction 2 contains what? The items I2 and I4 in L order, which will result in a branch where I2 is linked to the root and I4 is linked to I2. However, this branch will will share a common prefix. What is our common prefix here? Is I2, because we have I2 in transaction 1, and then we have item 2 in transaction 2. So now, based on transaction 1 and 2, we have what is called a common prefix, because that links these two transactions. So now the existing part is T100, because we started with this transaction in T100. Therefore, we instead increment the count of I2 node by 1. So let's see the next tree. So can you see it coming now? I2 has been started. Before I2 here, based on this, we have 1 count. So now we have another I2. So if linking this transaction 1 and 2, that means the count of I2 is incrementing. So this is why this point is saying, instead of maybe bringing another node here, so the tree is not going to be smooth and there's not going to be connected tree. So now we are going to just increment the number of value wherever we have increment in transaction. So now we say, oh, so now I2 has become what? 2. That means in transaction 1 we have I2 and transaction 2 we have I2. So now next is to link I4 with what? With the I2. Since in this transaction we have I2 and I4. So now I4 is linked to the I2. Can you see it? Which is linked as a what? Child of I2. So now I2 has what? Has two, sorry. I2 has 2 support count, right? So continuously, this is how all the data items that we have in the table are going to be exhausted. So you can see continuously going to the next transaction. And you see the next transaction where we have T300, I2, and what? I2, I3. Then you can see I2 is a common prefix again. So I3 is, so the I2 is incremented by what? By 1 to become what? 3. And then I3, because no I3 in the tree, now I3 is created from I2. So continuously, transaction 400, also I2 is incrementing because I2 is becoming the common prefix in all these. So in transaction 400, we see I2, but we already have I1. So now let's see what happened to this. Can you see I4 is linked to I1 here, and then the I1 is incrementing here. So if you look at it in transaction 1, we have I1. In transaction 4, we have I1. So now the support count of I1 is incrementing. So this is why we have I1 has incremented too. But I4 is connected to I1 because I4 here is connected to I2. So they have no connection here. So I4 again is connected to I1 with 1. So then continuously, you see I3 here. In transaction 5, we have I2 and I3. I2 is still incrementing to 5. It's as a common prefix. Then we have I3 also connected to I2. So continuously moving to the next transaction where we have I1 and I3. So the I1 here is connected to the null. Then I3 is connected to I1 continuously. So this is how the tree is being generated continuously up to the point where we have the last transaction. So maybe we will allow you to finish the T800 and T900 and see how you can connect it yourself. Because this example is enough for you to get the point, and then you can see how you can complete the remaining two transactions. So when you sit down, maybe at your leisure time, try and see how you can connect the remaining two transactions. Maybe we can start it from the beginning, then see how this transaction can be exhausted. So in general, when we consider the branch to be added for a transaction, the count of each node along a common prefix is incremented by 1. You have seen what we did in the I2, keep incrementing. Then wherever we have another item connected, then we increment the count. And the nodes for items following the prefix are created and linked accordingly. So actually, to facilitate the tree traversal, that is to go through this, an item header table is built. For example, this is the item header table for simplicity. We already have the header where we have I2 as 7, I1 as 6, I3 as 6, item 4 with a support count 2, item 5 with a support count also 2. So you remember that one in the list L. So now the header count is created, the header table is created, so that each item point is occurrences in the tree. So you can see the tree here now is the same thing that we have. So each one pointing to this. This is a node where it is pointing. I2, we have 7 count. I6, we have this. You can see I1, where we have I1, we have 2 here, we have 4 here, that is making the 6. And then the I3 is also 6. You can see where we have I3, 2 here, I3, 2 here, and another I3, 2 here. We have 6 count. Then I4, we have only 2. You can see I4 here and I4 here, 1, 1. So lastly, we have I5, also 2. We have 1 here, and then we have 1 here. So this is how the problem of mining frequent pattern in database is transformed to that of the frequent pattern tree. So you can see the frequent item that have appeared frequently in the database now are transformed into what is called FP tree. So that is the first part of the part. So now, when we start from each frequent length pattern as initial suffix pattern, construct this conditional pattern. This is just the explanation. And then construct the conditional frequent tree. Yes, this is what we did. Initially, you remember we initiated the header, then we construct the frequent pattern tree. So the pattern grows as by concatenation of suffix pattern with the frequent pattern generated from conditional FP tree. So this is how the mining is working. So you can see it here. So we are trying to translate this mining FP tree and see how it works. So first, consider I5, for example, occur in 2 branches. Yes, we have I5 in the first transaction. We have I5 in another transaction, maybe around transaction 8. So now, I5 as a suffix here, it is corresponding to 2 prefix paths. That is I2, I1. Then we have the I5 here. Another prefix, we have I2, I1, I3, then we have the I5. So that means I5 are found in these 2 prefix paths. So this is how it is. You can see it here. I2, I1, I5. You can see from I2, I1, then we have reached the I5. The next suffix is what? I2, I1, I3. Where is to I2, I1, I3, then we have the I5 finally. So we can see these 2 paths are taking us all to I5. This is what he's trying to say here. We first consider this as, then we find the branches. From which point can we drive up to the point where we have the I5? So this is how it is. So now, can you see it here? I5, as indicated in the explanation, this conditional FP tree contains only a single path, I2, I1. So you can see I2, I1, and then I2, I1, I3 will take you to I5. So these are the conditional. So now you can see I3 is not included because its support count of 1 is less than the minimum support count. So you can see now on the top here, we say, okay, now the minimum support count, as people remember what we did in the priori. So what is contained in the pre-competent generation, the most what correspond to the minimum support count given. So this is the minimum support count, which is 2. So do we have I3 as more than 1 here? So I1, I2, we have 1. Let's say I1, I2, we have 2. And then I1, we have 2. So I3 is only what? 1. So we have I3 as 1, that means less than the minimum support count. Then it is not going to be considered. So single fast generates all the combination of pre-competence, that is I2, I5, I1, I5, I2, I1, I5. That is a single fast. But for the conditional fast, we have I2, I1, and I1 and I2. So this is actually how the pre-competence generated. So can you see the pre-competence that is generated, which is translated from this explanation? Item 2, item 1, item 5, 2 count. Item 2, item 5, 2 count. Item 1, item 5, 2 count. Item 2, item 1, item 5, 2 count. So anyone that has not satisfied the minimum support, then definitely it is going. So it's not going to be considered as a pre-converting generated. So next, we consider the I4, since we are doing with the I5. So at which pass do we have the I5? We have 2 branches, I1, I2, and I1. Why we see I2, I1, okay, I2, I1, then we have the 4. Then the next one, we have I2 to I4. You have 1 count also. So I2, I1, I4, we have 1 count. So these are the 2 parts also that we have. So I4 is a suffix corresponding to 2 previous parts. I2, that is item 1, item 2, item 1, with 1 support count, and item 2 and item 1, item 2 with 1 support count. So now, what do we have in our conditional pattern-based buffer transactions? Inside the buffer, we have I2, I1, I1 as we have here. We have I2 and then as a 1 support count. So its conditional FP3 contains only a single path, that is I2, where we have 2 support count. So this is why actually it appears like this. So to start with the I2 to this one, we have 1 support count. I2 to I4, we have another support count, which is 2. So that means I1 is going because it has less than the minimum support. Then the final pre-con pattern generators is I2, I4, where we have 2 support count. So single fast generates all the combination of pre-con patterns I2 or item 2 and item 4, where it satisfies the minimum support. So this is how the algorithm actually is keep on moving up to the last, where we have now this is I3. So the explanation is almost the same. Then next, what is generated here by considering the support count. So all of them here, support count is 2. So you can see for I3, so the frequent pattern generated for I3 is here. All of them satisfy the minimum support. Then we have the pass I2, item 2, item 3, with almost 4 count, which is more than the minimum support. Item 2, item 1, item 3 is 2 count, more than the minimum support. Item 1, item 3 is 2 count, more than the minimum support. So this is why you see I3 appearing everywhere. You see I3 here, I3 here, I3 here. So different paths will take you to I3. So this is why you are seeing here a lot of paths that can take you to I3. So lastly, for the I1, the same, the process almost the same. So what are the conditional items? Conditional frequent items is I2, where we have 4 support counts. So can you see it? I2, I1, I2, I1. Then this is where we have to correspond to the minimum support count. So the simple fact generated all the combination of pre-competence here, which is this path. So this is actually how the pre-competence has been mined. So you can see the summary in this table with 2 different branches. Can you see it? This is a pre-competence. This is why it is called pre-competence growth. To keep on growing until all the transactions, all the items has been exhausted actually from the pre-competence tree. So now, since we have that, the next step of the algorithm is generate rules, as we did in the a priori. So now step 2 is rules generation. So once the pre-competence growth or pre-competence tree has been generated, then you have the when you generate the prefund patterns, we have them here. These are the prefund patterns that are appearing in the data set. So now the next step is generate the rule, because this is the target. This is why when we had the exercise, I told you in the lab that the target is to have the rule, because it is from the rule that can be used for decision making, for doing the prediction or whatever. So now pre-competence are here generated from the table, the previous table in the previous slides. You can see them here. Item 1 and item 5 has a support count of 2. Item 2 and item 5 have a support count of 2. Item 2, item 1, and item 5, that is 3 item sets, have the support count of 2. Another 2 item sets, item 2 and item 4, has a support count of 2. So another one, item 2 and item 3, has a support count of 4. So continuously up to the last one where we have a support count of 4 also. So which rule will be generated with minimum confidence of 70%? So you know how to calculate the minimum confidence. We have done it previously in the previous lecture. Once you have the support, then you can have the confidence. So when you have the support of a particular item, then you calculate divided by the support of that right hand side. So for 2 item sets, these are the rules. Item 2 implies that there is a purchase of item 5. This is how the rule is generated. Or you see item 5 is implying that there is a purchase of item 2. So the purchase of item 2 implies the purchase of item 5. And then the purchase of item 5 implies the purchase of item 2. So for 3 item sets, for another 2 item set, let's see, item 2 implies item 3. You have another 2 item set here. Where is it? Item 1, item 3, item 2. So now we have item 2 implies that item 3 is also bought with that, or item 3 implies that item 2 is also bought. So now you can see it here, a 2 item set, almost with support count of 4. And then another 2 item set is item 1 and item 3. So item 1 and item 3 is here. You can see it here. Item 1 and item 3, almost 4 support count. It also appears. So always the rule may be in the reverse case, this pre-conf item, because what implies this can imply the other one. Another item 2 item set is item 2 and item 1, where we have the item 2, item 1, last one, the last one. Then for the 3 item sets, we have 3 item set, 2 of them here. So now for the 3 item sets, this is where the issue is. Then you can have item 2 and item 1. For example, in here, item 2 and item 1 and item 5. So item 2 and item 1 may imply the purchase of item 5. Or item 5 may imply the purchase of item 2 and item 1. Then another rule that can be generated from the 3 item sets that we have here is that item 2 and item 5, because item 2 and item 5 appears here, may imply the purchase of item 1, or the reverse is the case. The last one, say, okay, item 5 and item 1 may imply the purchase of item 2, or item 2 may imply the purchase of item 5 and item 1. So this is it. For the second 3 item set, you can see it here. You can easily translate it. These are the 3 rules also that can be generated from that. So you can see how the rules are being generated using the item sets. Once the pre-con pattern has been generated, then the item set can be easily generated. So do you have any question, please, before we move on? I believe when you sit down on using the slides, you can easily graph it more and understand it better. So any question, please?
No question, sir.
Okay. So what are the benefits of generating the pre-competent tree structure? Actually, it guarantees the completeness and the compactness of this of the algorithm. So completeness, when we say completeness, that is to preserve the complete information for pre-competent mining. Here you can see what we have done in generating the pre-competent tree. You see all the information that is in the data set has been completely incorporated into the tree. So it never breaks a long pattern of any transaction. And then when we talk about the compactness, that is, it reduces the relevant information, or irrelevant info, frequent items are gone. Any irrelevant, this is why we say, okay, now it's less than the support count, then it will go completely. Then items in frequency descending order, the more frequently occurring, the more likely to be shared, so that instead of creating more, it's just incrementing the number so that they share the common prefix actually. So never be less than the original database. So these are some of the benefits of using this algorithm. And then what are the advantages of the epicross algorithm in general? This approach actually, you can see based on what we have, you compare it with the Fourier algorithm. As we said earlier, it uses what is called divide and conquer. To compose both the mining tax and the database according to the pre-competence obtained. So it leads to focus search of small databases, because as we said earlier, it involves only two scanning, the first scan and then the second scan. But in the case of Fourier algorithm, actually it involves many scanning. That many scanning actually lead to what is called candidate generation. So this is why the other factors that have giving it advantage is that it has no candidate generation, no candidate tests, as in the case of a priori, the generation of the candidates is too much, and then it has to scan the database multiple times. And then compressed database by using the tree structure always compress the database. So tree, and you could remember the tree as a part of the data structure. It always compress the data in the structure that you can easily see all the information in a small size data. So no repeated scan of entire database. In the case of a priori, all the data set in generating the one item set, one data set has been scanned. In generating the 2 item set, all data set has been scanned, database. So in the case of frequent pattern growth, that has been bypassed, so there is no repeated scanning of the entire database. To only scan the data set, the database twice, then finally produce or generate the result. So basic operations, count local frequent items and building some frequent pattern tree, no pattern search and no matching. Yes, we don't need to be matching the similarity of the different databases. So you can see some performance in terms of scalability with a support threshold. So you see the runtime, because there is no much scanning, So you see that a Ferrier algorithm is the runtime of tree computer algorithm actually, which is D1 here, is lower than the a priori. So actually, this is why I say that REST algorithm actually it was introduced to address some issues that are associated with the a priori algorithm. So it has a lot of advantage. Maybe you read ahead, you read more, and you see some other advantages. So in summary, actually, we discussed the basic concepts of association rule mining, where we see the association rule and support competent framework for projection-based FP cross algorithm, how to construct the tree, how to mine the tree for frequent items, how the rule is generated, and then finally, what are the advantages of FP cross? I think this is what we have discussed in this particular slide. So if you have questions, this is why I told you maybe we need some more short time to finish this segment where we have already done with the two main parts last time before we go for the break. These are some of the references that you can consult and a lot of YouTube videos. So do you have any question, please? Do you have any questions so far?
No questions, sir.
No question, you are okay. Well understood. So try and see that you work out this, especially this association, because this simple calculation, or not calculation, say the rules or the process. It's very important, as we may likely see it in some questions. How to generate the rule as maybe a Fourier concept or the epigros concept. So it's good that you work them out and then understand the process, because it's just about the calculation. It's just about understanding the process. Sorry, I'm not feeling okay today. So that is it. So maybe next week, inshallah, we are going to discuss about the project during our lab sessions, and make sure your project is about to be ready by next week, because you may probably submit the earlier days of week 13, since we are going to have your presentations on week 13, especially in this group like C and D. We are going to have the presentation on that very Monday. So make sure you do all what you can to finish the project by week 12. Right?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So make sure you sign the attendance in your future, please. Have you signed the attendance?
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't have any question, I think we can close here. Inshallah, see you next week for the discussion of the project. You are in the lab session, or our respective lab sessions. Okay, so can we stop here? Can we close? We don't
Okay,
have any
sir.
question?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Terima kasih. We go for makan now.
Yes, jom.
You too, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sudah.
Thank you,
Sudah
sir.
already.
Thank you, sir.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,